One day, the Lord God sent the prophet Nathan to see King David of Israel. And here is what happened.
My liege, a moment of your time.
Certainly, Nathan. You are a most honest prophet. Come, sit, and tell me what's on your mind.
The Lord sent me to tell you about a very evil man in your kingdom. Two men live close by, one rich, the other poor. The rich man has a large herd of sheep and cattle, but the poor man only has one ewe lamb. He raised the lamb and grew up with it. His children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in the poor man's arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to visit him.
This makes me very angry. I will not tolerate this subject of mine doing such a terrible thing to the poor man. The rich man must pay for the lamb 4 times over because he had no pity on the poor man.
Then the prophet Nathan stood up before David. He pointed his finger at him and said,
You are the man.
What had David done that would cause the Lord and Nathan to accuse him of such a terrible thing? Let's go back a few months in time and see. One day, while Israel's armies were out in the countryside fighting the Ammonites, King David lounged on the roof of his palace. He looked out upon his city, watching all that was going on down below. On a housetop, not too far from the palace, he saw a beautiful woman bathing in the heat of the day, and David said,
What a bonny lass! I've got to have her!
So David sent for Bathsheba, and when she arrived, she was issued into the king's throne room, and she knelt before him. And David said to her,
You are a bonny lass. I will sleep with you tonight in my chamber.
But Bathsheba protested.
Oh, King, do you really think it was such a good idea? After all, I am a married woman. My husband, Uriah the Hittite, is serving in your army this very moment.
David responded to her protest, saying,
Ha! I am the king. I always get what I want. If I say that you must sleep with me, so be it. Besides, your husband will never find out, and what he doesn't know will never hurt him.
Unfortunately for David, Bathsheba became pregnant during their one night together. And Bathsheba came to David and asked him,
Oh, my Lord, what are we going to do? I am with a child, and sooner or later my husband will find out that I'm unfaithful.
Well, don't worry, my dear. I'll think of something.
So David sent for Uriah. He hoped to get Uriah drunk and then send him to his home to sleep with his wife, so that Bathsheba could claim that her husband was the father of her child. When Uriah arrived, David spoke these words to him.
My good Uriah, you have served me well. Come, eat food and drink wine at my table. Then you may go home and spend the night with your wife. You have earned it.
Well, thank you, my lord. You are very kind.
Now, Uriah did eat, and he did drink, a lot. But when it came time for him to go home, he instead chose to sleep on the steps of the king's palace. It had something to do with the tradition that Israelite soldiers kept, something about not enjoying your family time while their fellow soldiers were in harm's way, out on the battlefield. And when King David heard this, he said,
Rats! Foiled again! What shall I do? I'm going to be exposed as an adulterer. I must not let that happen. If only I were so lucky that Uriah would get killed on the battlefield. That would solve all my problems.
And so David hatched a plan to get rid of Uriah once and for all.
Yes, yes. I know exactly what I will do. I will send Uriah back to the front lines. And I will send General Joab's secret orders to place Uriah in the front row of the troops the next time the soldiers storm the gates of my enemies. The odds are greatly in my favor that Uriah will be killed. Then I will be free to marry Bathsheba, and no one will ever know I committed adultery. Brilliant! Brilliant, I say!
David did send Uriah back to the front, and his plan worked to perfection. Uriah was killed, and David took Bathsheba as his wife, and no one knew that David had sinned. Well, no one except for the Lord, who told the prophet Nathan to go see King David. And do you remember what Nathan said?
You are the man.